Our team members are Cindy, Yuri, Shudi, and Edward. We will analyze the various phenomena during COVID-19 and the corresponding WTO rules. First, I will introduce what is vaccine nationalism. It refers to the massive international procurement of vaccine by some developed countries to satisfy their own population before considering other countries. This can make it difficult for economically backward countries to control the epidemic and can describe the global fight against the epidemic. Look at this picture. Stella Guitar is a nurse in Kenya's large public hospital. She now spends her day in bed suffering from housing, shortness of breath, dizziness, and fever because she has been infected with the COVID-19. In several African countries, such as Kenya, there are few health workers like Guitar who has been infected without the COVID-19 vaccination, and some of them have even died from the disease. In contrast, wealthy Western countries have been vaccinating their health workers with the COVID-19 vaccine for months now. The British journal Nature published a future article entitled Describe Vaccine Convenience. Poor countries will not be able to obtain vaccine until 2023. According to the article, although developed countries such as US and the European Union have been pledged to donate hundreds of millions of doses of vaccine to low-income countries in Africa, the vast majority of people in the poorest countries may not receive the vaccine until 2023 because the European Union, the US, and India may not receive the vaccine until 2023. Vaccine-producing countries are currently restricting vaccine export. Let's welcome Yuri.
Thank you, Cindy. Now let's analyze the rules that might have been breached. Nation-states begin placing restriction on transit and export of essential medical items. This is reasonable, but once the contracting parties of the GATT begin to stockpile vaccines and other medical products in quantities that exceed their needs, they breach the discipline of the GATT. The key discipline of the major breach is that the export restriction on medical supplies applied in times of pandemic are prohibited by Article 11.1 of the GATT 1994. First of all, authorization and approval is a kind of license used to meet increased domestic needs of medical supplies in times of COVID-19. Such export restriction with the effects of restricting export are definitely covered and promptly prohibited by Article 11.1 of the GATT. Furthermore, according to Article 13.1, a prohibition or restriction is not applicable unless the export of the like goods to all third countries is similar, forbidden, or limited. Although there is question about Article 11.2.20b and g, it is necessary to explain whether the applied export restriction on medical supplies are justified. After the review, stockpiling is not likely to be justified under call-outs and exceptions. However, Article 10 and 11 provide general exception that the members can use to justify their export restriction. Let's welcome Shudi to introduce this part.
Thanks to Yuri. Now I will talk about exceptions. GATT 1994 provides exceptions in Article 11.2a and Article 20b and j that members can invoke to justify their export restrictions. Article 11.2a GATT allows measures applied only briefly to food and essential supplies, and it must be taken in order to prevent and relieve critical shortages. So far, it appears that the Indian, EU, and US regulations fit this criteria, given that all of these nations are experiencing a scarcity and the limitations are being imposed to address the existing shortage. Article 20b GATT states that protecting human, animal, or plant life or health is necessary. Another exception is in Article 20j, which allows essential measures to be taken for the acquisition or distribution of products in the general or local short supply. These two exceptions provide further legal protection in contrast to the EU, which requires a longer vaccination period, and India, where the situation is serious. The United States appears to be the one where the measures can be disputed. Any remaining export restrictions could be successfully challenged before WTO panels once the population of these nations has been adequately vaccinated and there is an adequate supply locally. Article 20 provides general exceptions that the members can use to justify their export restrictions. A successful defense of Article 20 must satisfy two-tier test and three criteria. The first tier test is that a measure must fall within the range of policies designed to achieve the objective listed in paragraph A to J. Then use three criteria to test the measures is necessary to achieve 20B objective. The second tier test is that the measures is applied in a manner consistent with the chapter of Article 20. In conclusion, in the case of COVID-19 vaccines, The measures adopted are most likely legal if they meet all of the standards set forth in the article. Despite international organizations and experts' complaints, WTO rules offer governments flexibility in the pandemic. Now welcome to Edward for the last part.
Thank you, Shudi. And I will make an analysis and summary of WTO and the relating factors. On the one hand, the WTO has been playing an important role in regulating trade and reducing barriers, even during the pandemic. The WTO has taken three main measures to reduce the economic influences brought by COVID-19. First, to help member countries coordinate their trade policies. Second, ensure transparency of policies. Finally, collected the trade response. On the other hand, there is the fact that WTO rules have been so abused and ignored by some countries. For example, US officials have imposed trade restrictions to protect local steel and auto markets, citing national security concerns. And this is increasingly becoming a common measure in every field. Then, as Yuri mentioned earlier, one interesting thing is that when an epidemic comes, people are prevented from working and traveling, which hurts supplies a lot, but also leads to a greater demand for basic products. And Cindy also told us that many countries have banned the export of epidemic-related products to address national shortages, including medicines, vaccines, and food. According to WTO's report, in 2020, 80 countries have implemented export restrictions, and more countries are still following. The purpose of Article 20 is to allow countries to sidestep the normal trading rules if necessary to protect human, animal, or plant life or health. During the spirit of COVID-19, the exceptions carved out space for an appropriate response to the pandemic. Like Shudi said, most WTO members defend Article 20B and Article 11.2a. In addition, some members have also resorted to get Article 21, which is a security exception. Although these measures relieve the pressure on producing countries, however, it also can lead to shortages of food, medicine, and protective equipment in import-dependent countries or underdeveloped countries. At last, the WTO is the biggest international organization dealing with global rules and trade. It's briefly to ensure that trade flows as smoothly, predictably, and freely as possible. WTO not only plays an important role in the economic field, but also shoulders social responsibility during the pandemic. They have made efforts in non-economic areas, particularly in health and resilience in low-income countries. Well, countries can also coordinate their trade policies in smaller organizations like G20, but the WTO provides a fair platform for 164 countries come together to coordinate their trade policies and discuss their responses. It gives every member the right to express their opinions and update the information, which is very important in some underdeveloped countries. I think it's the most practical and fair method to every country's situation. And here is our reference. And that's all. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.